Welcome back, everyone. I'm Jason and you're watching Jason Jensen Trains. In today's episode, we are back working on our waterfront area right here. We're going to build two small retaining walls and then we're going to put in a cobblestone road. And we're going to build that or make it out of styrofoam. All right, well, we have a lot to do, so let's get to it. Okay, let's first move all of this out of the way. Okay, the first thing we need to do is build a retaining wall that goes right here. And we're gonna build it to look like brick. And we're using laser cut wood from a company called Monster Model Works. And these are just some scraps that I had. So I'll take a pencil and mark the back of this and cut it just a little bit higher. And then put a 45-degree angle on this piece. And then we'll cap it probably with a piece of styrofoam and paint it to look like concrete. All right, well, as you can see, I actually had enough scrap wood that was laser cut with the brick pattern on it to do both retaining walls. I then sprayed it with this. You can see it's a primer and it's kind of a reddish brown. It's funny, it doesn't say a color on it, but again, it's just kind of this reddish brown color by Rust-Oleum, and I sprayed it on both the sections. Now we'll take this over to the workbench and sponge on some other brick colors and then spray it with a dull coat. Okay, to paint our brick, we're just going to use some simple craft paint. I have terracotta, tangerine, and brick red. And we'll just use a sponge. Let's start with terracotta. Now we'll use tangerine. Next, we're going to use some burnt sienna. Next, we'll use brick red. Okay, we'll let this dry. I may use the hair dryer to dry it quick, and then we'll spray a dull coat over all the pieces. Okay, I used a hair dryer and dried these really good. Now I'm going to spray these with a dull coat. Now it doesn't have to be testers, it can be anything, but you have to seal this layer with a dull coat before we put on our mortar, because by sealing it, it prevents the colors from running and bleeding into the mortar joints. So if you don't seal this and you start to spread on your joint compound or whatever you're using for your mortar, the color will bleed into it and it won't be white or gray. It'll start turning an orange color. So very important to spray it with a dull coat after you've sponged on your colors. All right, I actually let these walls dry for an entire day. So now we're going to take lightweight spackle, and we have our water and some paper towels. Now you can use a paintbrush if you don't want to get your fingers all messy. I'm going to quick paint the back side of these walls neutral gray, just in case any of it shows at the very top. For our cobblestone, we're going to be using pink styrofoam, and I just bought this at Home Depot. Now, it was a much thicker piece. I cut it down, and it's probably 1/8 of an inch. This was actually just some scrap that I had. I'd like it to be a little thinner, so we're going to cut this in half, make it thinner, and then cut all of our cobblestone. But first, I want to add a little bit of texture to this. So I'm going to take some tin foil and crumple it up. And then lightly roll it over this. And you want this to be pretty tight so it doesn't make too much texture. You want that texture to be pretty fine. Now, we don't need much heat. And the first thing we're going to do is cut this in half. Now I'm going to cut these a little bit thinner. I'm basically cutting it in half. And it's okay if it's not perfect. I've shown this tool before on the channel. It is called the Proxxon Hot Wire Cutter. And I'll put a link in the description below so that you can buy this from Amazon. And if you do buy this from Amazon using the link, I get a very small percentage that comes back to me that helps support the channel. Last one. Now I have this set for 3/8 of an inch, and I've got all 4 stacked. Now I've moved the fence closer, and it's about 1/8 of an inch. Well, as you can see, we're moving right along. Now when this dries, we'll paint it a stone color. I'll probably do like a brownish gray. I'm not sure yet, but we'll paint it, and then, sorry, having trouble with this. Then we'll sprinkle real dirt over some of the areas so that it goes into the cracks. I should have wiped the end of that gun first before I tried spreading it, but that's okay. It's working. Now when the camera's not on, I have my music going, and it really speeds things up. But that's okay. I'll let you see how this is going. As you can see, this really doesn't take as long as what you would think. And you want to make sure that you only do a little bit of glue at a time, because it doesn't take long and it starts to set up. And you want to make sure that you're using the correct side, the side that we rolled the styrofoam ball over to give it texture, because the other side is completely smooth, and you can tell. I don't know if it shows up on camera, but that side is the smooth side, and then the other side is the textured side. And then while that's still wet, just sort of drag your finger over it so that they kind of slide down and butt up against the other row. You want them to look kind of tight. We'll have to run some vines up to hide that crack. All right, well, I'll keep going with this. I think it's looking great. I'm excited to see what it looks like after it's all painted. All right, well, as you can see, the road is finished. Now I'm going to let this sit overnight and then paint it tomorrow, just because I want it to completely cure so that there's no chance of any of those little brick coming up. Now up here you'll notice I left it kind of sporadic up here because I want it to look like some of the brick sunk into the mud, some have broken up, because this is going to transition from a blacktop road that runs through here onto, there'll be dirt and then all of the stone. Now I need to sand the front of this, and then all of this needs to, we'll remove all this over here, all the buildings, and we'll paint and weather that. So I'm gonna leave this for tonight, and then tomorrow we'll come back and start painting. Okay, so it's the next morning. Everything is completely dry. I'm gonna start with a base coat of Castle. And this is a chalk paint. I bought this at Michael's. I'm just dipping my brush in the water so that it stays wet. Now I'm taking neutral gray, and while it's still a little wet, I'm just going to go along the edges just to darken it. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush, and we'll do a little bit right down the center. Okay, next we're going to paint all of this, and we're going to use Cocoon. And again, it's chalk paint. Now when this dries, we'll put a gray wash over it, so it looks a little bit more like concrete. Okay, so I'm taking white Elmer's glue and a paintbrush and painting along the edge with the glue, then using real dirt and you can even fill in some of the bigger holes. But some of those we will fill in with weeds. Okay, now for the fun part. We're going to add some weeds. So I've just got some regular white Elmer's glue. And the weeds that I'm adding are from Scenic Express. And we have to make sure we put some on the other side. We'll definitely go heavier with the dirt and weeds at the bottom, because you figure all of the rainwater would wash down and dirt would collect at the bottom, and then weeds would grow in it. Okay, well, here we are so far. Some stuff is still a little wet. Some of the weeds are still drying. I am thrilled with how this turned out. Now I didn't do much on the front side of this because this all gets covered. Let's grab the structures that go here and put them in place and see what it looks like. Wow, it was so much fun getting back to working on this section, and I am thrilled with how today's project turned out. And yes, it did take me a while, but the important thing is that you spend your hobby time the way that you want to. There are quicker ways that this project could have been done. There's probably plastic sheets that already have a cobblestone texture on them. All you have to do is cut it, glue it in place, paint it, weather it, you're done. But the important thing is that you spend your hobby time the way you want to. It is so important to take a break from reality and just spend a little bit of time enjoying your hobby. All right, well, thank you all so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. And like always, a huge thank you to all of my Patreons. All right, well, until next time, stay motivated and happy modeling, everyone.